thank you for being with us tonight for Open Line. We're talking with James Smallwood, the president of the Fraternal Order of Police. Taking your phone calls. We're going to get right back to the lines. I know we have a lot of people waiting. Richard, thanks for being with us. What's your question?
Good afternoon. Mine is a comment.
Okay, go ahead.
First is a resounding yes to the Citizens Oversight Committee. These committees have proven to be effective against out-of-control government and police agencies every time they've been used. It's an innovation and a reform that should be nationwide. I came to Nashville a multiple police abuser, a police abuse survivor. And of course, the law enforcement, the Fraternal Order of Police want carte blanche power just to gun down citizens without question, without oversight. The time has come. We will have this oversight. The fight or fight reaction, panic, is it's the first reaction of all living creatures. When the Fraternal Order of Police came out condoning the execution-style murder of Hambrick, it showed more than ever why we need that oversight committee in Nashville. I support it 100%. The panic, I grew up in the 60s with long hair. I used to, every time I stepped out, the police would pull me over and harass me. I'm sure I ran from them plenty of times, but they never shot me in the back for it. I say yes to the Oversight Committee. Okay, thank you, Richard, for sounding off. We appreciate it. Let's go to Kathy now. She's on the line. Hi, Kathy.
Yes. Why has the FOP been so quick to exonerate and publicly support both Liebert and Delkey before the investigations of their actions were complete?
Well, if you look at the Lippertson scenario, we were right. I mean, his actions were justified. He did the right thing. And of course, we're going to support a member when we believe they've done the right thing. We called for a release of the video with context and with facts, and we believe that if that is done, that the community will understand why Delkey acted the way he did. But until we know all the facts, we cannot justify a conclusion from anybody without knowing what has actually happened.
Kathy, thank you for the call. What other facts do you hope to hear come out of the TBI? And not necessarily, you know, this is what happened, but what other information do you hope the TBI has been able to gather? Well,
I mean, we know that Mr. Hambrick had a firearm, but that's somewhat questioned right now by the community for some reason, even though there's been photographic evidence provided. We know that Officer Delkey gave some commands to Mr. Hambrick to do the right thing and drop the gun. And if he had done that, we wouldn't be having this conversation today. He would still be alive, but he didn't comply with that order, and that's why we are where we're at. When you say that you know Officer Delkey gave those commands, we both established they don't have body cameras. He's not wearing one. There's not one on his car. How do you know that he gave that command? Well, we're expecting that those things will come out in the investigation, and of course we have to be very careful on what we discuss because it's an open investigation and we don't know the facts. Yeah, we're waiting on the TBI. Okay, let's go to, I think we left off with Scott. Hi, Scott.
Yeah, I have a two-part question. Okay. What is the rebid, and how does it affect the officer and the public?
Okay, so the officers have an opportunity to bid annually, or I'm sorry, biannually now. For years, it was they had the opportunity to bid annually for their position within the police department, wherever they were assigned. I think a little over 2 years ago, the chief changed that to a biannual rebid. It's been a big source of contention between the officers and the chief. Explain why, from an officer's perspective. A lot can change in the period of a year, much less 2 years. An officer's life can be turned upside down, whether it be a spouse finding new employment or a new child introduced into the situation, or whatever life circumstances may introduce. It's very difficult for an officer to stay maybe on an afternoon or a midnight shift for 2 years if they can qualify and go into a different shift that would be more accommodating for them and their family. In that rebid process, do the officers know, okay, in the North Precinct there are 3 jobs open that are, you know, overnight shift, and in this precinct there are 2 jobs open that are day shift? No, it works based on basically it opens everything up in the patrol area, and you can bid and you're placed based on seniority. Gotcha. Scott, did you have another question? Oh, Scott, I guess you're gone. Okay, let's go to David. Hi, David.
Howdy.
Go ahead.
As far as crime rate goes, when you export manufacturing jobs and you condemn people to live in poverty for the rest of their life, their children and grandchildren see the truth. books is a bunch of lies. And the Tennessee legislature is responsible for writing the laws that allow cops to shoot people in the back, just like they're responsible for allowing the criminal court officers to be nothing but a bunch of organized criminals. And to change all this, we are all deficient in one simple thing. From time to time, the tree of liberty must be refreshed with the blood of tyrants and a few patriots. Thank you.
All right, thank you, David. Let's go to Elizabeth on the line. Hi, Elizabeth.
Hey, how are you doing?
Good, go ahead.
Okay, I got two questions for you. My first question is as a mother to children that are African American, with all the shootings that have actually been going on in the United States right now, with the young children that haven't had actual, firearms and getting shot by the cops, and then the cops being freed to be able to go back and have their guns back. I mean, is there any accountability? I mean, because if a civilian goes and murders somebody, they're going to go and get locked up and go to prison. But if a cop does it and there's no evidence that the individual had a firearm or anything that was life-threatening to that cop, I've just seen a lot of news about, cops being let go for that.
And I guess before I let James answer this, or have James answer this, it's so hard to speak in broad terms about so many cases because they're all different. True. They're all so very different. But I do want to ask you again, talk about the accountability that Metro Nashville officers face being on the job.
So there's statistics to support that. And to the caller's question, we're comparing apples and oranges here. What we're talking about here is an individual who was involved in a police confrontation, produced a firearm and refused to drop it in both instances. In one instance, dropped it and picked it back up. But the accountability of the Metro Nashville Police Department, I believe, is somewhere in the range of 22 to 27% higher than most police departments nationwide. The average complaints sustained are somewhere between 8 and 10% nationwide. Here we're 28 to 30%.
That's saying that when someone lobbies a complaint, it's found credible. Is that what you're saying? 27% of the time? 27 to
30% of the time. It's obviously a higher level of accountability here than anywhere else in the nation.
And what can happen to the officer? What kind of reprimands happen?
Well, it obviously varies with the complaint. It usually ends up in being some sort of suspension or a reprimand, whatever the issue may be. It's a very broad range of what can happen, and it's tied to whatever the offense was.
And obviously, with this officer-involved shooting, it could lead to criminal action. So there's always that route as well. All right, we're going to take another quick break. When we come back, we'll have more. Stay with us.